Okay, so this video is going to be how to install a dedicated power line for a radar detector in a Porsche Macan. This happens to be a 2023 base model, and I happen to have a Uniden R3 radar detector. And so let me show you what I've done is, so for the radar detector, I'm using the suction mount, and I've routed this cable that I purchased from Amazon, and in one end, is the connector you need for the radar detector, of course. And then the other end goes to like a cigarette lighter type of deal, like that there. And, kind of sort of one of these. I bought a cable for like, I think it was like $10 on Amazon. And it actually just kind of looks like an old school phone cord. It's not coiled or anything. It's just 11 feet long. And so for the Macan, you use a little plastic pry tool. And if you pry up on this edge, you can get it to kind of come loose just a little bit, pull back about a half an inch or a 3/4 of an inch, and then you can tuck the line up into there. And then the same thing with the headliner here. See if I can try to get that. But if you pull on that, you can kind of see that it comes down. So I worked my way along the top, and just kind of kept pulling it down and working it. And then when I got to this corner, I did the same thing. I worked the cord under here, and then I went along this seam right here, and I was just tucking the thing down. I didn't try to pull this off. I don't exactly know where the clips are on there here, and I didn't want to break them since it's a new car for me. I was being a little more careful than I might otherwise. But anyway, I tucked it down through from here in there. I tucked it in, and then I went up underneath here, same thing, and you can kind of see there's a gap there, and I worked that gap underneath there and tucked the cord in all the way down along here. And then when I got to about here, you see there's this little seam. I used my my trim tool to kind of pull this plastic out just a little bit, and I was able to feed the line all the way through behind the plastic and have it come through. And see, you can see there it's coming through from behind. And then I cut the little end off. Let me show you that. So like, here's what the other end of the cord was, right? So I had 11 feet of this phone wire to work with, and this end, and I just chopped that off because I'm not plugging that into anything. And that line came in down here, and then I just stripped it back. This is the trim tool that I used as I worked that headliner and this gasket here. I used this plastic tool so I didn't scratch anything up to work that in there. And then when you get down to this fuse, you're going to need ground and power. And I prefer to have a power that's only on when the key's on. So, right, so I shut my key off, my radar detector will shut off. So this nut right here, which is a 13 millimeter, I used one of those wrenches that has, kind of a ratchet end built into there. And then I was able to just work that nut off. And I put a ring terminal on the ground and hooked it, tied that back in tight. And then the power line on my Macan, I'm not exactly sure what the function is, but the fourth fuse slot from the bottom on this bank, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I didn't have a fuse there. And so I was able to just tap power into there. And this line here goes up, and I've got a little 2 amp fuse that's, on this line. I've tucked it back in here already. And so that's what I get power from. I get a little 2 amp fuse and this power tap plugging into where I didn't have a fuse anyway from the factory. And so it kind of worked out handy. And so that's where I got power and ground. and was able to kind of work that. Now, I'm an electrical guy, so I got a lot of tools here. And so I fabricated my own assembly for a fuse, but I mean, I would recommend try to get one of these. You can get them at an auto parts store for a few dollars. And the way they work is, now this particular one's the wrong size. This is for a smaller mini fuse. And these fuses that are in the car are your kind of this larger standard size, right? So you got kind of that size, or here's like a mini fuse there. And so the Porsche has this larger fuse size, which is what's in that assembly. And anyway, and this one here is just for illustration purposes. But you can buy these, and notice how it's got a spot for 2 fuses in there. Okay, so one spot for the fuse is to fuse what plugs in here, like for what the fuse that would be in there for the car, and then the that back slot toward the back here, that is the fuse that we'll use for whatever accessory is getting powered from this red wire that you hook up. So anyway, I'd recommend you use one of those if you can get it to fit. I didn't actually have one that was the right size for this larger fuse. I was anticipating a mini fuse, and so I had to kind of just make my own little deal since I had the tools to do that. So anyway, that's how that goes. I'd recommend doing this sort of an install and using that 4th spot there so that the radar detector turns off when your key's off. And if you're not sure about this kind of thing, it's a really simple little job, but these might be some tools you have. I used my multimeter to measure each one of the fuse locations to see which fuse location was powered off when the key was off. So that's how I found that number 4 from the bottom was the one I wanted to use. Then of course you're going to need some crimpers, some wire strippers, a couple different pairs, maybe some tape to just kind of add some extra protection to your wires. But it's really a pretty simple job. It's taken me a little less than an hour here. And so now when I key on the car, I got radar detector that's all installed nice and neat. So hope that helps somebody. You don't really have to take this trim off. There's a way to kind of just tuck things in and get around it without having to pull that all off.